What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Starting off in local news, lawmakers are gathering to push through sweeping changes to Taiwan's gender equality laws. It's a response to hundreds of people coming forward with stories of sexual harassment and assault in what's become known as Taiwan's MeToo moment. Stash Butler brings us this report.
Taiwan's MeToo moment finally has its day here at the country's legislature. Lawmakers are gathering for an urgent session, and top of their list is a raft of changes to gender equality laws after the wave of allegations of sexual misconduct that swept Taiwan. It began with a Netflix show, Wavemakers, that showed a political staffer standing up to her harasser. That prompted a flood of accusations that touched school teachers, singers, activists, as well as politicians in all of Taiwan's biggest parties. In response, the government wants to toughen laws to stop abuse, particularly by bosses and anyone else in a position of power. Victims would be able to claim much higher damages, and abusers would face longer prison sentences. If those changes can pass the legislature this month, they could go into effect as early as August. But lawmakers have a busy 2 weeks ahead. They'll also be reviewing a trade agreement that Taiwan signed with the US last month, and a scheme that lets prisoners work outside is facing scrutiny. That's after public uproar that a man who beat a police officer to death was allowed out of jail. It's a packed calendar here at the legislature, but with the public keen for a tough response on sexual abuse, no party will want to be seen to be dragging its feet. Eason Chen and Stash Butler in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people gathered in the center of Taipei this weekend to protest inequality and corruption. With Taiwan's general election just months away, all the main political candidates were there, except for one. Sally Jensen has the story.
It was Taiwan's biggest political rally so far this year. Tens of thousands showed up in the sweltering heat of central Taipei on Sunday to protest housing inequality and corruption in the judiciary. Organised by a pair of outspoken political observers, an internet personality and a former professor, the event drew mostly young Taiwanese men.
台湾司法正义跟居住正义的问题已经延续了很久，实际上看到的改变真的不多。
让犯罪有更重的代价，他们要稍微检讨一下，保护我们人民。对，我们只是一般的人民。
The two main opposition candidates for next year's presidential election spoke at the event. Hsieh of the Kuomintang and Ke Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP. Even Terry Gou, the billionaire founder of Foxconn and potential wildcard candidate, made an appearance. But Lai Ching-te of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, was absent, making the whole rally seem less about the housing and judiciary issues at hand and more about the perceived shortcomings of the DPP government.
我想，因为司法改革跟居住正义其实都是非常重要的话题。那其实不管是什么样的
The government is so bad in last 8 years. They didn't do nothing.
我们要号召更多的公民出来，指导这个政府，给大家一个交代，好不好？
Ke, who spoke last of the three, drew the biggest response. This isn't the first time the organisers held a rally of this kind. 4 years ago, they protested China's perceived influence on Taiwanese media. But this time, there wasn't any mention of cross-strait issues.
This is a rally focused on domestic issues, inequality and corruption. But with Taiwanese people showing up in these numbers, it's indicative of a wider disillusion with the political establishment. Now, there's still a few months left until the election, but it's unlikely that the ruling party will be able to ignore these growing voices of dissent. Justin Wu and Sally Jensen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Dozens of Chinese students are visiting Taiwan at the invitation of a former president. 37 students from 5 of China's top universities are here on a 9-day trip for educational exchanges. They'll also visit some tourist hotspots. It's the first large-scale exchange visit by Chinese students since the COVID pandemic. The trip was organized by former President Ma Ying-jeou's foundation in hopes that it will help ease tensions between China and Taiwan.
让这个大陆团能够来，那他认为说，在这个时刻有这么重要的一个团来，对两岸和平、对这个稳定局势有非常大的帮助。
3 police officers in central Taiwan are facing investigation after a teenager of Vietnamese descent was badly injured during a mistaken arrest. Activists say it's an example of systemic racism that's widespread in Taiwan's police forces. John Van Trieste reports.
These images have sent shockwaves through Taiwan. 3 plainclothes officers chased down a local teenager, the son of a Vietnamese immigrant. They say they believed he was a runaway migrant worker, but the 17-year-old was on his way to work on a relative's farm. During the arrest, he thought he was being kidnapped. In the scuffle that follows, the teenager's head hits a piece of farm equipment. This left a gash across his face that needed 17 stitches. The incident happened in early July, but it was kept under wraps until a Changhua County Council member went public last week. It's left many local residents feeling upset and angered. After public outcry, all 3 officers involved now face sanctions and an investigation from the local prosecutor's office.
本案员警穿着便服，未出示证件，依法定程序盘查，违反勤务纪律，所长从重记过处分，并调整非主管职务，令2名员警各以申诫处分，分长监督不周，申诫处分。
But activists say this is not an isolated incident. NGO Taiwan Association for Human Rights says people of Southeast Asian descent often face harassment and violence from the country's police.
有一位来自越南的这个失联移工，他叫阮国飞，然后他在一次事件里面被台湾的警察盘查的过程中，被近距离的开了9枪死亡。前一阵子有一位印尼的女性的移工在倒垃圾的过程中，因为警察看到她就是眼神有异，所以就是上前盘查，还把她带到警察局。
The association says this is a systemic problem, and they say that without a fundamental overhaul in how the police are instructed and trained, the case in Changhua won't be the last of its kind. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's top weightlifters are getting ready for the Asian Games in September. Our reporter Sandy Hsieh went to the National Sports Training Center to meet them.
Standing over a barbell, legs braced, and this is one of Taiwan's top weightlifters, Guo Xingchun. The 29-year-old is a 5-time Asian Games champion and her country's first weightlifter to bag an Olympic gold medal.
那我觉得对一个运动选手来说，其实不管怎样的过去现在在面对新的赛场上的时候，其实目标还是都会是一样的，就是当然会希望把最好的成绩带出来。
Guo is currently lifting around 30 kilograms on her barbell. Along with other weightlifters here at the National Sports Training Center, she's getting ready to carry the hopes and expectations of Taiwan at the Asian Games.
对于大家可能看到你以前这样的一些辉煌的历史，然后相对来说给你的期望一定会比以前还要更多。对，然后我觉得这就是我自己要去克服的一个重点。我觉得是不管我的结果会是怎样，我觉得就是支持我的大家也会一直为我加油啦。对对对。咦？ 好喽，等下哭哦。
The Games will take place in Hangzhou, China this September. Before then, these athletes will be undergoing intense training with guidance from their coach, Lin Jingneng.
最不怕的2个字就是辛苦啊，因为我们就是为了辛苦，为了国家荣誉而在做奋斗。
Among the athletes, Coach Lin also has high expectations for Luo Yingren.
今年是他最好的机会，我们也期待他能够为我们中华队夺牌。不确定性因素也比较高，相对的他的机会也会比较大。最主要他的机会就来自于他平常的训练。
好，我想要前3名啊，一定要前3名，不前2名，一定要前2名。
With just over 2 months to go before the start of the Games, these weightlifters are hoping that this training will help them lift their way to glory. Patrick Chen, Leslie Liao, and Sandy Hsieh for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese tennis player Hsieh has won her 4th Wimbledon title. Hsieh and Czech partner Barbara Strycova claimed the women's doubles event on Sunday. The pair faced a challenging final round. They fell behind early in the match, losing the first 2 games. But Hsieh and Strycova found their footing and went on to win 7-5, 6-4 in 2 straight sets. This is the 2nd time the duo has won at Wimbledon. It's also Hsieh's 6th tennis Grand Slam title. It's a tropical paradise off the southeast coast, home to one of Taiwan's 16 officially recognized indigenous groups. But Orchid Island's Dao people share more with parts of the Philippines than with Taiwan itself. Rick Glauert reports on how they're retracing ancestral voyages across southern seas.
"58-year-old Shaman Matapus has been building boats for decades, but he's daunted by his latest project. Crafting it the way his ancestors did, this will be his biggest ship yet, and Matapus hopes to use it to reach the land they came from, Batanes in the Philippines, just 200 kilometers across the Bashi Channel.
在这里能够做成这样子，算是很难得。那我要跟巴丹岛分享的时候，我可以到你那边，希望说你也可以来你这样子。 互相交流。
Matapus is Dao, a seafaring indigenous group native to Orchid Island off Taiwan's southeastern coast. The Dao trace their history back to Batanes in the northern Philippines and still share a language and culture with the indigenous Ivitans who live there. It will take the 20 oarsmen at least a day to row by hand from here on Orchid Island to Batanes in the Philippines. It's a journey that mirrors that made by their ancestors, who left Batanes for Orchid Island more than 800 years ago. These days, travel between the 2 islands is less direct. It's a roundabout route via Taiwan's capital Taipei, an international flight to Manila, before heading back north from there to Batanes. This makes it difficult for migrants like Lida, who want to visit their families. Lida moved here 30 years ago, and despite being just across the water, she's only been back to Batanes 5 times.
I want to visit them more time, but it's only my words, but I cannot do it by myself.
The Dao will hope their planned intrepid trip across the ocean can pave the way for regular direct flights or ferries between the 2 island communities, who now also share similar challenges and hope to help each other through them, like protecting their traditional way of life in the face of booming tourism, and grappling with neighbouring China's military expansionism, which has troubled both Taiwan and Philippine governments. Chinese military ships are increasingly transiting through the Bashi Channel, separating the islands. It's one of the region's hottest military flashpoints, but the Dao and the Ivitan are seeking to strengthen a connection that transcends borders.
我们的船是没有带有任何武力的船，就从这个地方划到另外一个地方。我们很主张，能够有更多的和平。
Every traditional boat the Dao will build is made from carefully selected longyan trees, which grow over decades on the steep hills of their volcanic island. When they set sail for Batanes later this year, the Dao seafarers will be taking part of their island's precious natural and cultural heritage with them. They'll also be bringing a clear message that they are committed to reconnecting with their roots and building this relationship across the ocean. Devin Hsieh and Rick Glauert on Orchid Island for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we leave you with images of some adorable Siberian tigers. They're getting ready to be released back into the wild. I'm Eric Gao. Take care and see you next time.